Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
And this is the BJ Show. I've mentioned infrequently, I should do it more often, that if you're listening to this on playback as a podcast or on our YouTube channel, which is bjshow.video, that we actually do the show live. You can listen to it live. We stream it live as well, too. If you can't find the stream, just go to bjshow.co or go to egbert.co. Go down to the point where you see Egbert, little icon, 250 by 300 ad there. Click on his nose and it'll direct you to our streaming channel. Anyway, the show is live Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m., and you can listen to it live, or you can listen to it in tape delay, or I don't even know what they call tape delay because it's not really tape anymore. Isn't that weird? We still call
tape delay.
We still call, hey, roll tape on that. Well, you don't really roll tape anymore. It's just I guess you could say, now it's even to the point where you could say, well, hey, roll the hard drive, but so many hard drives have gone away, so it's all SSD now. Okay. This is Brad ranting, okay? And this is what's frustrating to me is that United States Postal Service, okay? I have a thing going where I'm buying some used equipment from a guy in Springfield, Illinois, okay? And I'm getting one hell of a deal. Matter of fact, I bought a piece of equipment from this guy. I mean, when I say pennies on the dollar, I mean pennies on the dollar. And I don't want to get too specific about this, but this is decommissioned. Once again, this is Brad the recycler. This is equipment that's 10, 11 years old that essentially the reason it's available and it's still in real good shape is because of a corporate merger. Let's put it that way. The one corporation merged with the other corporation, and the corporation, which is the victor, and the other one, which was taken over, the victor corporation is getting rid of all the other corporations' equipment. Does that make any sense to you?
It does, yeah, I can follow that.
Even though it's serviceable and it still works great. So I bought one piece of equipment from this guy, and when I paid him, his wife runs the bookkeeping department. It's a mom and pop, literally mom and pop operation. He said, I've actually at their office, I go, how do you want me to pay you? And she says, well, I'll send you a PayPal invoice. Can you pay via PayPal? So I said, fine. I'm sitting right there in their office. So she sends me the PayPal invoice. I get it on my phone. I pay it. And it shows that it's paid on her end, but it says that my payment is being held for 30 days, okay? And so they're not real happy about that. And I get it. I go like, well, man, I'm sorry. And the reason for that is, if you know this whole crazy history with doing e-commerce, they don't have enough history on their PayPal account where PayPal has, PayPal is still looking at them as like, oh, this is a new account.
So it could be, it's like fraud protection just in case.
These guys are schemers. We're not going to let them have this money for 30 days. So I liked the first piece of equipment that I bought from them so much. I went back up and took a look at another piece of equipment they had, okay? And I went a couple weeks ago, and I knew I was going to want it, and I took a deposit with me. I went and got essentially a money order, which is pretty much as good as cash. And I looked at the equipment, and I said, I want it. Here's your money order as a deposit. And the problem is, this is not something I can put in the trunk of my car. I have to have this shipped by a truck. So in other words, and the first one I got, I had to make arrangements, and it had to be brought back here to St. Louis and offloaded and the whole bit. Sort of a complicated deal, okay? So the second one, a couple weeks ago, I gave him a deposit, and I said, look, I don't want to put you through this the next time around. Next time around, I will send you a cashier's check. And he says, great. Cashier's check, go to the bank, should clear immediately, okay? I mailed that off on Tuesday, okay? And this is Springfield, Illinois. You can jump in your car right now, and from pretty much anywhere in the St. Louis area, you can be in Springfield well under 2 hours, depending on how you drive. It's an easy drive.
Yeah.
If you're driving from downtown St. Louis, it literally takes about 85, 90 minutes. It's not that tough of a drive. So I sent the cashier's check, and once again, this is important, cashier's check. I sent it priority mail, which you go to the post office, and they have their little red envelopes, which is flat rate. I think it cost me $9.98. And it said guaranteed, or not guaranteed, arrives by Thursday, okay? So I mailed this on Tuesday, okay? Guess what? Doesn't show up yesterday. I got the tracking number. It shows it's still in St. Louis. And
oh my God.
And so now that's as of this morning. It hasn't updated. And what's interesting about this is I text this guy. And now here's the thing. I've already got a trucking company hired to go pick this thing up on Tuesday. And I'm going like, is this guy going to release this to me? If what happens if the check never shows up? And once again, it's a cashier's check. It's not like a check in my checking account where I just, call the bank or go online and put a stop payment. I don't know if you can do that on a cashier's check. I don't know how that works. I've never had a cashier's check that's been lost. So I say something to him about this, and this is his response. He's sort of cool about, hey, Brad, he's a nice guy. He says, don't worry about it. It'll show up. He says, it'll probably be here Friday. Now, this is what he said. He says, we have this happen all the time because mail bounces back between St. Louis and Springfield. And I said to him, why is that? He says, because we don't have our own processing center in Springfield anymore. He says, if I mail a letter to someone, and he's in Springfield, Illinois. If I mail a letter to someone in Springfield, it goes, if I drop it off the post office, it goes from the Springfield post office down to St. Louis, and then it comes back to Springfield, and they deliver it in Springfield. And I'm going like, huh? And he says, sometimes things get caught in a loop where it goes back and forth between St. Louis and Springfield. And I'm going like, okay, explain this to me. I mean, John, does this make any sense to you?
Does, because it's the Postal Service. And Brad, in July, it looks like 2 weeks ago, I linked to a story. Jason Smith, who's a congressman from southeast Missouri, does constituent mailers, the ones that like the old franking privilege,
right,
where he gives updates to constituents. So the problem that he's having is that his mail can't get delivered because according to the Postal Service, according to the local Postal Service guy, they send the mail to St. Louis. So the mail from the southeast Missouri goes to St. Louis for sorting and then comes back. But the quality of the sorting is so bad that the mail has to be sent back to St. Louis for sorting and coming back. So the local guy said, mail will often come back sorted incorrectly, which requires the post office to send it back to St. Louis to resort. So you're sending it, what would that be? A quarter way across the state and back. And then you have to send it back to St. Louis and then back to the boot heel to get your mail because St. Louis, which is, I guess, apparently where it can only be sorted competently in St. Louis, is so bad at their job that the mail has to go back to St. Louis. That's why.
Well, I'm looking at my tracking on this. Once again, I sent this Tuesday. And once again, I sent it with their priority mail, and the lady even said, and she says, you sure you don't want to send it next day? And I go, no, it's going to Springfield, and I'm thinking to myself, there was a time when if you dropped a regular letter in the mail in St. Louis, it would be in Springfield, Illinois the next day, okay?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm looking at this where it says, latest update, your package will arrive later than expected, but is still on its way. It's currently in transit to the next facility, okay? I mailed it in the St. Louis post office on Tuesday, which was the 13th, correct? Right? Isn't that the 13th?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And the scan, it says, arrived at USPS Regional Facility, St. Louis, Missouri, Package Sorting Center, August 14th, 2024, 2:59 a.m. Then it says August 15th, moving through the network, in transit, the next facility, arriving late, and that says August 15th, which was yesterday. And now there have been no more scans. In other words, it's somewhere. And I'm thinking to myself, I told the story, remember we talked about this, that they took the mailboxes, the drop-off mailboxes as you went into the post office in Clayton. They're gone. They took them out, and I've talked to 3 different people on this who are people who are Claytonites, and 3 different people, I got 3 different responses. One of them says the reason they took them out was there was mail being stolen out of the boxes at night. And these are the ones where you drive through a little lane and they have the long snoots on the mailbox, you know what I'm talking about, where you can just...
I do. I learned that word from you, by the way, Brad. Snoot. I love that word.
Reach out your window and drop it in the thing. They had a real problem with that with the Chesterfield post office right there on Olive, just off of Highway 40 in Chesterfield. Okay, second one I heard was that somebody smashed into the mailboxes, which is not, I don't think is because the Clayton had so much volume at that Clayton post office with the drive-through lane that I think they had 4 or 5 boxes there. You can always tell the real busy post offices because they have multiple boxes out in front. And the third one I heard was that the postal workers complained that they had to go outside when it was hot. They didn't like doing that. When it was cold, they didn't like doing that. And
why would you?
And if it was raining, they didn't like doing that. And if it was snowing, they didn't like doing that. I'm going like, well, in other words, there were, 2 months out of the year when it was a nice spring day or nice fall afternoon where they went, let's go out empty the mailboxes out in front. So that's the only time they clear. I'm going like, I don't get it. And once again, the interesting thing was, and look, this is not me giving my politics, because my next thing I'm going to say, I'm going to bash Donald Trump, okay? I'm going to go into bashing Donald Trump mode. But before I say that, I don't know if this was an old interview. I jump in the car yesterday. I'm a guy, the radio's always on. I turn the ignition, radio comes on. And one of the stations I'm listening to is playing a Kamala Harris interview. I guess it must be old because she won't talk to the press, and she's describing why she is going to get rid of private health insurance. And her explanation is, well, it's terrible when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, you need this, but we can't do that until we get approval from the insurance company. Okay, let's back that up a minute. Is government health care, is Medicare any different than that? Because of the fact that ask anybody who's on Medicare and they'll tell you stories about, first off, there are certain doctors who won't even see you because you're on Medicare. Get what I'm saying, John? You know what I'm saying?
I do get what you're saying. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
They don't want to mess with it because they don't get that much money, and it's a PETA, and you all know was pain and you know what. So, and I'm going like, okay, and then I'm thinking to myself, okay, the government is the same government, and I know people are going to say, well, the Postal Service is actually not necessarily a government-controlled entity. Balderdash, it's a government-controlled entity.
Of course it's government-controlled.
Right.
And now, Brad, the only thing, before you go on to Donald Trump, the only thing I would say to nitpick, people didn't actually smash into the boxes. They Asher Ben Rubied into them.
Thank you so much, John. Okay.
Let's be accurate. Go ahead.
Did you listen to Trump's press conference yesterday?
I did not.
I heard a very interesting quote yesterday that somebody needs to give him underwear that is like the invisible fence for dog kind of stuff, and somebody needs to stand off stage with the little clicker that when he starts going into his crazy off message stuff, they need to. What was
he off message about yesterday, Brad?
See, first off, this is how he gets himself in trouble. Where the people, like the other day, I read the story that when he did this last week in his press conference, and it was on CNN, the 20 lies that Donald Trump said yesterday. Okay, I am a car nerd, okay? I watch all these guys on YouTube, and here's the crazy thing. I'm not an expert on electric cars, but I know my way around electric cars. I don't own an electric car. I would love to own an electric car. But I know enough to be really dangerous, to the point where if you ask me questions about, I can tell you the problem. Like, for example, this is an interesting story, that all the original Fiat 500s that came out that were totally electric, how most of them, they were like $30,000 cars. You can now pick them up for practically nothing. Some of them have 30, 40,000 miles on it because the battery packs have gone bad in them. And the battery packs cost $20,000. Well, the interesting part of that is it's not the batteries that have gone bad. There's a controller within the battery pack which has gone bad, and you can't buy the controller. But there's a company in Bulgaria that if you take the battery pack out of the car, you have to put it up on a hoist, you have to remove the entire battery pack, and you have to take out like literally a couple hundred screws when you get access to the battery pack. And the controller is made by Bosch, but Bosch will not sell it over the counter. There's a company in Bulgaria where you take your controller, you ship it to Bulgaria, they ship it back to you, you put it back in the battery pack, you put it back in your Fiat 500e, and your Fiat 500e is like a new car again, okay?
Wow.
That is the frustration with the electric vehicles. There's so many stories like that. Trump goes on this crazy-ass rant about the tractor trailers. that, the reason the trucking companies and he goes in and I've heard him say this exact same stuff multiple times. He goes in this whole rant. You know why we don't have tractor trailers that have electric tractor trailers, that bring those big trucks all over the place? The reason is because they weigh 2.5 times what a normal tractor trailer weighs. And if that were the case, all these tractor trailers, we'd have to rebuild all the bridges in the United States because of the fact that the bridges won't hold up. When these electric trucks would go over the bridges would collapse. We have to rebuild all these bridges. BS. That's not the case. That's not the case. Matter of fact, what's interesting is if you look at the Tesla Semi, and you can go online and you can actually watch the Jay Leno Garage series where Tesla brings one of the tractors, and we're talking not like a farm tractor, but it's a tractor trailer. That's the way they call it. They call the truck that pulls the trailers the tractor, whatever you want to call it. Jay Leno test drives one of them, and the guy from Tesla goes through the whole thing. They talk about this. They talk about that the truck, they were very conscious of the weight, because why is that? Go out to Quick Trip out there at 70 in Cave Springs, or 70 and Mid Rivers Mall, or go to, when you're on the line, or when you're driving between cities, you'll see the truck scales. And the reason for that is, if you're a trucker and you think your truck might be overloaded, you'd go to the truck scales. They weigh your truck, because if your truck is overweight, guess what? When you go through the weigh stations along the interstate, you get a big ticket. And if your truck is super overloaded, they impound your truck. You can't leave the weigh station. Okay, that's BS. He talked about the fact that he went through this whole thing about, they cost 3 times as much. Everything he's saying was not true. And what's crazy about it is, he said this numerous times. I've heard the same rant from him numerous times. Well, the trucks, and he goes into this crazy story. I got a friend that's in the trucking business. I've heard the same story 3 or 4 times before. I got a friend that's in the trucking business, and he started off his truck, and now he only had 1 truck. Now he's got 27,000 trucks, and he's been buying trucks for 50 years. And he says that every year the trucks get better and better, which is true. Every year the trucks have gotten better. They've gotten more fuel efficient, and they've gotten easier to drive. Most of the trucks now are automatic transmission, which was a stumbling point to a lot of people becoming truck drivers, because quite honestly, driving a manual transmission with 16 or 12 or whatever, some of them are 10-speed transmissions, pretty complicated. You have to really be, you think driving a 4 on the floor is complicated to some people. Try driving one where you got 16 gears and you got to shift a gear like every 1,000 RPM. It's not like driving, like a gasoline engine. And he's just spewing out all this stuff that's just blatantly false. Why doesn't anybody get in a room and look at him in the eye and say, Mr. Trump, look, if you continue on these crazy ass rants, you're not going to get reelected. This is going to be 2020 all over again. And then you're going to be in December of 2024, you're going to be saying, the election got stolen from me, not once, but twice. I just don't understand it. Is he that much to the point, you and I talked about this, is he that much to the point where he's uncoachable?
Yeah, I think so, Brad. And I think, your original point of why doesn't somebody say that, maybe there are folks in the room that do say that to him and do remind him of them, and he just dismisses them. Maybe he is uncoachable. And now it goes back to, you and I talked about this, and you and I went back and forth, because I think we disagree on this, is that if there's 100 top people that are trying to get him to go a certain direction, he can't listen to all of them. Like he literally can't make time for all of them. But to your point, Brad, I don't know why the people who are closest to him wouldn't point out that those kind of incorrect statements undermine his credibility.
Well, I think it's to the point where he's shooting himself in the foot, because somebody can take just that segment where he talked about tractor trailers and say false, 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 false. And I will agree with everything they said, because he was wrong. He was wrong time after time after time after time. And once again, what he should have been saying was, this is the problem in the trucking industry. He should have been talking about DEF and PPF. And you don't even know what those two are.
Of course I don't, Brad, because I'm a normal human. Go ahead. Go ahead, Cletus McFarland.
Years ago, not that many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, the diesel engines were deemed, put out these pollutants, and they have now, when you get your diesel truck, you have 2 tanks, one for diesel and one for DEF, DEF, and what it's called diesel emission fluid. And it's this junk that you put into a separate tank, and there's this computer system that every so often it squirts a little bit of this DEF fluid into the engine, and there's a thing called regen, I don't get real, and there's a thing called particulate filter, and what they've done is they've made the diesel engines incredibly maintenance intensive with all this DEF stuff and the particulate filters and things like that. So in other words, and what's interesting is now, if you look at like diesel trucks, the big selling point is they'll say pre-DEF, which means this was a engine that was manufactured before all this crazy ass stuff, because there's examples of relatively new trucks, 30, 40, 50,000 miles, where the particulate filter gets clogged. And I mean, we're not talking on tractor trailers, we're talking like on delivery vans and things like that, diesel engines. You take to the shop, oh, your particulate filter's clogged. Oh, can you repair that? No, we have to replace it. We can't, they're not repairable. How much is it? $6,000. And we'll go, what? The truck's only got 40,000 miles. Well, too bad. Your particulate filter is clogged. This is how they've ruined the trucks, you know, and he never talked about that. He should have said the current trucks have problems because the EPA mandated all this crap, and the EPA, well, and this is EPA rules and regulations, not under Trump. This is EPA rules and regulations under Obama. That's what happened under Obama. They put these crazy ass diesel emission things in. Ask any trucker, they'll tell you the story. Ask anybody who has a diesel engine pickup truck that's made in the last 3-4 years, and they'll roll their eyes. Oh my God, it's not like the old days. The old trucks were blah, 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 blah. You know, and once again, they've turned a very efficient engine, and that's why they run diesel engines, because to this day, if you go out and buy, let's say you go to a Ford dealer and you buy an F-350 and 2 identical trucks on the lot, one of them's gas, one of them's diesel, okay? The gas truck, a 1-ton at 350 truck, will maybe get 12, 13 miles a gallon. The diesel truck will get 22, 23, 24. That's why they run diesel, because it produces more torque and you get better fuel economy. But yet, they've ruined it. But what do I know? And the answer to that question is, you know what the answer to that question is?
A lot.
Not much. The answer is not much.
And we could get to, I had my stopwatch go in during the particular filter thing, Brad. We could get 3 Instagram reels on particular filters and DEF, not to be confused with So Def from Jermaine Dupri, but we could get 3 Instagram reels, Brad, out of your dissertation on particulate filters.
Well, but see, this is sort of my point, that someone should be telling this to Trump, and he should be saying, you know, here's the line. He should be saying, and every trucker, anybody who has anything to do with diesel engines, if he just would say, they want to mandate electric vehicles. Okay, you guys out there running diesel trucks, look what's happened in the last 5 to 10 years with the DEF and with the particular filters. And everybody, the diesel truckers would go like, oh my God, he's exactly right. I'm voting for Trump, you know, because he would speak to them, not this garbage about, well, the trucks are 2.5 times more weight and they're going to collapse all the bridges, which is BS. Politicians. If you and I ruled, if you and I ruled the world, it would be much better, wouldn't it?
I don't know about that. I'm not so sure. Maybe you, Brad. I think things would be better if you ran the world. This is a good time for me to apologize to listeners for the fact that on Monday I am absconding from my post at this show. We will not be bringing the show to you on Monday. It is the first day of school for certain offspring, and I am taking the day off from the show.
See, that's the difference. If John ruled the world and he was like the president of the United States, he would mandate that all women should wear mini skirts and 5-inch heels, right? That would be John,
Yeah,
right?
It depends on where. Like, not out in public. Like, sometimes you have to regulate their clothes because you don't want them traipsing around Target and running into, you know, their ex-friend from high school, Carl, who's like, you look so good. You want to get together for a drink? Don't wear your pickleball dress to Target, or Carl's going to capture you at the end of the aisle and hit on you. No, wear it for me in the comfort of our own home. And anyway, Brad, to get back to the point, I will not be here on Monday, so we will be back with everyone on Tuesday.
That's John MCP Combest, Combest.
That's right.
Okay. Have a good day, John. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?